Heard on Thursdays with Nikki is about to go live online. Catch HOT, the iconic radio show that made Philippine FM radio talk, every Thursday on the Monster.
Streaming video on the Monster Facebook page at RX931, the Monster YouTube channel at RX931, and twitch.tv/Monster RX931.
You heard on Thursdays host, Nikki Porter. Stand by and enjoy the program.
Hey Monsters! Welcome back to another late night Thursday with me, Nikki, to give you company and some good conversation on Heard on Thursdays, the show that made FM radio talk. Heard and seen only in summer's hottest, Monster RX93.1. Now, as we all know, April is Filipino Food Month. We're celebrating Filipino food, Filipino dishes, Filipino cuisine on Heard on Thursdays. And I wish I could eat like here in the booth actually while it's happening, or even drink in the booth while it's happening. But unfortunately, we're still doing things remotely, so maybe in the near future it can happen again. Now, there are two constant themes of our guests on this subject, and it's one, that Filipino food is truly world-class and world-acclaimed, and two, that Filipino cuisine adopts world influences in order to evolve. Now, part of the Filipino food culture is, of course, the drinking. We Pinoys just love to drink, and we don't have to deny it. It's a cultural thing. It's a get-together kind of thing. It's normal. Well, perhaps it's not always alcoholic beverages too, since we have our own refreshing non-alcoholic drinks like sagot gulaman and buko juice, etc. But when it comes to alcohol, we're there. We can hold our own, not just in the actual drinking, of which we are legendary, but in the quality and distinction of the liquor we produce, from coconut vodka, aka lambanog, to sugarcane rum. Except maybe for one iconic drink that is unfortunately not our specialty as of yet. I like to be hopeful because we don't grow grapes here, and that's where you make wine. Noble attempts have been made to make Philippine wine here in our islands, but they have yet to prosper. But as our food culture evolved, we have integrated wine drinking to our daily eating. No longer is wine drinking some fancy activity reserved only for the snobs. Today, everyone drinks wine for pleasure, for health benefits, for status sometimes. And it's no longer some cult beverage, which it was as recently as the 2000s. In fact, Heard on Thursdays was one of the first talk shows to cover wine appreciation here in the Philippines and the wine community here, and how you can enjoy your wine with your regular Filipino dishes like adobo and sinigang. Over the years, HOT has guested sommeliers, chefs, wine experts, wine enthusiasts, wine masters, winemakers and distributors, and wine ambassadors of such famed wineries as Hardy's and Penfolds in Australia and Mondavi in the USA. So tonight, why not? For Filipino Food Month, let's talk about wine in relation to Filipino food. Hopefully with a nice glass by your side. Sana all, right? And as we always say in conversations of this nature, enjoy intelligently, drink moderately. Our guest tonight is a sommelier, which is to say a wine steward, a trained and knowledgeable wine professional who recommends that what wine to drink with your food. And he's not just any sommelier. In 2019, he was proclaimed the best sommelier in the Philippines. He was a champion, y'all. And I think more than that, I studied with him in school. So this is a pleasure for me to actually catch up with him and just get to know how life has been for him, especially as a sommelier. So Heard on Thursdays to answer your questions about what wine to pair with your Tapsilog, maybe. Philippine Sommelier Champion, Ian Santos! What's up? Oh my
Hello.
God. Hey, oh my gosh, Ian. So glad that you could join me tonight. I'm very excited. So I know we know each other from college, but this has been like the first time since that we actually caught up. And I'm
That's
really
true.
glad. So it's awesome to have you here. But I want to know, and I start this off usually by asking my guests, what have you been doing since the start of the pandemic? That's not in relation to, drinking wine, being a sommelier? Any new hobbies that you developed since the pandemic?
You know, honestly, not really. I didn't really get any have any hobbies or acquired anything, but it's just really more of studying for me, learning more about wines. It's more of binge watching as well. You know, I watched series as much as I could, movies also. Yeah,
What's
nothing unusual really.
mm-mm. What's your latest binge?
Bridgerton. I just finished watching the whole
Ooh,
series.
okay. I
Season
see
2.
you. All right. I have yet to watch the whole thing. But anyway,
Yeah.
okay, Bridgerton. I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I want to bring this up. One of the things we sometimes ran short supply of during the pandemic was liquor. Of course, we had the ban, so we couldn't really have we didn't really have supply of it or would order it from the sources that we knew. But did you manage to still drink a lot of wine? Do you have like a cellar of your own, like a like a fridge that is specifically just for wine, so you were able to survive?
Yes. So I do have like a really small fridge. It's actually in an 18 bottle wine fridge that I have at home.
Nice.
Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to keep
What?
wines during the whole liquor ban period. So there was quite about a month when I didn't drink any alcohol at all. But
Oh
at
my!
least I was able to detox now. So that was that was a
Detox,
good
quote
month.
unquote. But really, I
Yes.
wish I had more. No, I totally get it. But did you have like a? Was there a go-to wine that you had at least for the pandemic? Did you have a pandemic wine that you
So
always go for?
yeah, no, I did keep a lot of Pinot Noirs in my fridge. I have a very small space for white wines and rosés. So I had a few Chardonnays from Burgundy. I had a few Chablis, but Pinot Noir was a lot of the bottles that I actually kept in the fridge. So that was basically my go-to like grape variety during the whole pandemic.
All right, Pinot Noir for the pandemic, y'all.
Yeah.
Now, before you became a sommelier, did you always have a preference though for wine over other alcoholic beverages like beer or whiskey?
Yeah, I actually started with beer. So I've always been curious when it comes to flavor profiles, exploring different kinds of beverages, not just alcoholic beverages. So I started with beer. I was always curious on what makes it different with each other, what makes it taste, in such way. And then I was able to learn more about wines. Wine is always, wine's very historical. It's really all about geography. It's all about culture. And like for me, the best way to travel without leaving the country was to learn about wine. So when you study wine, it's really all about geography. So that's what
Yeah.
made me interested in wine.
Ah, all right. That's cool. But I like that you also said that you were interested in other alcoholic and non alcoholic beverages as well in terms of flavor profile. And I think it's perfect then. If you already had that interest, that you were able to find this kind of profession, this kind of passion for you to actually, just like nurture and cultivate it even more. So before you became a sommelier, didn't really know that much about wines or alcoholic beverage for that matter. Did you have a particular varietal? It's like you weren't really much about brands, or maybe you were. Was there a brand or a varietal that you were more into back then?
Yeah, I think just like everybody, I think we all start with a few things like Moscato, with Rieslings and all
Mm.
that. So it's an easy drinking white wine on the sweet side. I think it's everybody's favorite drink as well, especially here in the country. So it's a very approachable kind of wine also, and it's very easy to pair with almost any kind of food. Moscato was one of the things that I was always curious about. The good thing about this grape is that you can actually grow this in almost any wine region in the world. There's so many different styles that you can make out of Moscato grapes. And when you get to eat this grape alone, or like even before fermentation, it's actually a really nice fruit. It's almost as small as, I don't know, blueberries. Like really small
Oh,
grapes. It's a really nice wine.
and I can just imagine because, like, right, you can freeze grapes too. So, and it's like nature's
Yes,
candy. That's what people call it. So, I would like to
exactly.
try this Moscato grape. That sounds
Yeah.
interesting. Now, this brings me now to the question of something that you probably love or hate to answer or have been asked so frequently. What is your favorite wine now? Now, if you can't narrow it down for for just one, just like one, you could probably cite one for every wine type that you have in mind.
Yeah. I mean, that's the most difficult question that you could ever ask a sommelier, actually. I know I mentioned Muscat earlier, but it's not my favorite grape. Like, we started with that for sure. But
Mhm.
my favorite grape right now would be Pinot Noir. So give me a bottle of Pinot Noir from any region in the world, I'll be the happiest person. If you give me one from Washington State or Oregon in the US, that will be the best bottle you can ever give me. So it's my favorite grape variety and region, Washington State, Oregon, and even Burgundy, of course. I mean, you could never go wrong with Burgundy Pinot Noir. Best region for
Mm.
me in the world.
Okay, that is definitely something I have to try. I love Pinot Noir also. So I've tried like there's one Australian one that I do like. I forgot from where. But anyway, yes, it's not about me tonight. We're talking to Ian Santos, our Philippine Sommelier champion of 2019,
Yeah.
and we are learning about wine and just really how can we pair it also with Filipino food. Well, we'll get to that in just a little bit. So, I want to talk a little bit about our past friend. So, it's so interesting, looking back during our college days, like we were all studying the same major, but look at us
Yes.
now, right? Years down the road. And so we went to different paths. So but when you graduated or before you were going to graduate from college, did you have did you have a different plan in mind for yourself? Like did you know what you were going to do when you graduated?
No, actually, I did know that I've always wanted to be a sommelier ever since we had that wine appreciation class. So
Yes.
after, I mean, I didn't do well in that subject, by the way. Like, my grade wasn't really as high as everybody else. But I was always curious when it comes to flavor profile and different,
Mm.
different beverages. So I asked one of our professors, Mr. Lacson. I
Yeah.
said, "Sir, how do I become a sommelier?" And then that's when he introduced me to institutions like the WSET and then
Mm.
the Court of Master Sommeliers. And he told me, you know what? When you go to the United States for your internship, do it, go and take the course because that's really gonna help you learn more about wine. And so I did. So that's how I really started, falling in love with wine even more. But yes,
Wow.
as early as college, I knew already that I wanted to become a sommelier.
That's so great. And I love that you share that, okay, you didn't do well in our wine app class. I love that class, by
Yeah,
the way. It was just like an excuse to drink less because you were
yeah,
paying for the class
exactly,
anyway.
exactly.
No, so that was a great class, but you mentioned that you didn't do so well, and yet you still pursued the profession. I love that it didn't deter you from actually
Yeah,
becoming a sommelier, and that's something that people can take away, monsters. Just because your grades didn't cut it doesn't mean that you can't make it. That's a
exactly.
statement shirt. That's a statement shirt right there.
Yeah.
All right. So where did you take your classes for enology? Was it here? Was it abroad? What was your journey like?
Yeah, so after college, I went to the US for my internship. I was living in Florida for about a year. After the internship, I got a job. I got offered the job in Maine. So during that time, I enrolled already. So I took the level 2 online course for WSET under the Napa Valley Wine Academy. So that's how I really started. And then eventually I took the Court of Master Sommeliers certification. I started with the introductory course, which was in Nashville, Tennessee. And then I continued on with level 3 for WSET in Napa Valley
Wow.
Wine Academy in Napa Valley. So I actually went there for the course and the certification to take the
Wow.
exam.
And was this all remote? Because these are like in different states. So did you have to
Yeah,
travel there, or did you? Is it just like an
yeah.
online class?
I did have to travel for, especially for quartermaster sommeliers and the WSET 3 course. So I had to go to Napa to actually take the course and meet winemakers. We were toured around by the
Mm-mm.
around the area as well. So that was a great experience. I
Yeah,
think with wine, you really have to experience vineyards, see different,
true.
meet different winemakers to fully understand what makes their wine unique. what makes a certain region stand out, no, in terms of like flavor profile for the wine.
Yeah, for sure. And I like that it was that you were able to actually do this. And now that you have finally reached like, or have like at the end of that journey, now you're just living the life. And I think there's no better way to kind of, I mean, if there's one place for you to definitely want to study wine, Napa would definitely want to be one of those places. So that sounds really awesome. So to become a sommelier though, I imagine the exams would be rigorous. Like what are the kinds of exams that you would have to take to become even just a level one kind of sommelier?
Yeah. So to be a certified sommelier, you have to take three different parts for the examination. So you have the theory, which is of course a sit down written exam, and then you also take the practical exam, which is where So you'll do wine service. You'll have to open sparkling wines in front of master sommeliers, explain the bottle that you're opening. You'll have to do the whole decanting process as well. So it really depends on what they ask you to do, but you'll have to have a background on service, or at least some knowledge, and really have an experience to be able to do that kind of certification. And then for the last part, you usually do a blind tasting exam.
Yeah.
So for the level two, you have to take two. You have to do a blind tasting for two different kinds of wines, one white, one red. So that's what you'll have to do. You'll have to determine the grape variety, the region, like its main characteristics,
What?
just by
That's
tasting the wine.
what? That's you know what? That is actually one of the things that just amazes me with sommeliers, or those who are just like so they're just so talented and in just like like how each and every geographic grape tastes like. It's just really, I think how many wines would you have to taste for you to get that right? Really?
You know what? Like endless number. It's really difficult. You have to practice on it, not just with wines, but with different fruits also. I mean, if you can go to a grocery store, smell different kinds of oranges, different kinds of apples, because it's different when your fruit is ripe and when it's unripe, or lemon skin, or the lemon rind is different from
Uh-uh.
the lemon juice. So they still have their own different characteristics. So practicing with fruits alone, or even with vegetables, because at the end of the day, your knowledge and taste and aromas, is really all about experience, like what
Mm,
you're familiar with, what you grew up eating and drinking and smelling. So it's really all about that experience
yeah, and
in
I'm
different forms.
no, but is that the way? Is that how you trained yourself too? You went to the grocery store and then bigla na lang just
Yeah.
random fruit, and then what do you look for? Like, what are the things that you keep in mind when you do the whole like smelling of the
Yeah.
fruit or the vegetable?
So, well, it's different. It depends on the fruit also. You have to be careful, because I remember going to the grocery. This was in the US. I remember
Mm.
going to the grocery store, getting a piece of peach from Georgia. I remember it was like a really fresh peach. I tried rubbing the skin and smelling it, and then I realized there was a bit of like some hairs outside of that peach. So you really have to be careful with it. So it depends on the fruit also that you're trying or smelling, but really it's all about actually buying the fruit, cutting them, tasting them, seeing how it is in unripe, ripe, and in different forms. So
Yeah, I like that studying wines kind of promotes a healthy diet in some way.
true.
I love
That's
it.
true.
Okay, so in 2019, you became, I'm going to say this again, the Philippine Sommelier Champion.
Yes.
What made you want to enter this competition, and or were there people who encouraged you to join it? What was like how did that happen?
Okay, so I think it's really all about just pushing yourself. Wine is a never-ending study or course. Like even after you take the master sommelier exams, you're gonna continue on studying, because it's just never-ending. There's so many different regions, so many different classifications or laws that happens around the world for wine producers. So it's really all about pushing yourself. And sommelier competitions are one way of letting you experience different kinds of service, seeing where you're at in terms of wine knowledge, in terms of tasting also. So this is really one way for me to see where I'm at in terms of that. So it was a really great experience. I just really joined for the experience. I studied for it a bit, but yeah, unfortunately, I won the competition too. So
Unfortunately,
no, I said
unfortunately.
fortunately.
Okay, yeah, that's the right word. No, definitely. I love that. I love that. It's like you never really know where you're going until you get there. It's amazing. So congratulations, like after 3 years.
Yes.
Belated
Thank
congratulations. That's
you.
amazing. And so now I actually wanna let's get into the topic of sort of getting into the Filipino culture now when it comes to drinking wine. So you studied wine, became a sommelier. Can you honestly say though that you can enjoy Filipino food with wine, or is Filipino food in general better suited for stronger or more acidic drinks like beer and gin?
Yeah, so it's a very odd blend, no? Like wine and
Mm.
Filipino food. But not a lot of people know that Filipino food is actually really easy to pair wine with. So three things that we're known for our food: it's acid, it's fat, and it's salt. Like we love vinegar in our food. We love
True.
anything fatty, diba? We also love adding salt. I mean, that's one way of curing some of the fishes. Also, that's why we have tanggit.
Mhm.
That's why we have toyo. So these three main factors are the best things that you can pair wine with. So Filipino food in general is really easy to pair with wine. It just so happens that we don't have a good access to wine. I mean, we have better access now than about 10 years ago, but this is something that's not a common practice, but it's something that everybody can explore.
For sure. And as a wine expert, before I get to that question, to the next question rather. So currently, what are you doing now as a sommelier? Just for monsters who are tuned in and just are curious, like, okay, so if you're a sommelier, what is the usual route? First thing would probably come to mind is person at a restaurant who's going to recommend you a wine for the night for your meal. But I know that it's more than that. So tell us, Ian, what
Yeah.
are the possible routes?
Okay, so there's so many different types of jobs that you can get actually in the wine industry alone. So as a sommelier, you'll usually be seen in restaurants, making the recommendations, doing wine surveys, but you'll also meet sommeliers in wine importers, wine sellers, or wine stores who actually make or help make recommendations when it comes to food and wine pairing, or at least helping you make a good selection of wines for personal consumption.
Right.
We have sommeliers with other like with marketing and different kinds of businesses also. So we're almost everywhere in the industry, especially the hospitality industry. But in my case, I currently work for PYC Foods Corporation. So we own several restaurants under our business, and then we also have a retail store which is called One World Deli. So I help make the wine selection for all of the restaurants, and then the wine selection that we import ourselves for the deli alone. So that's what I
Mm,
do right now.
that's awesome. I can imagine that it's fun, like pairing, creating the selection. What do you look for? How do you come up with it?
Okay, so it's really all about the story of where the wines come from. I usually go for a wine selection that has, that are made in sustainable manner, some organic wines as well. We usually go in terms of regionality, like just getting the right grape varieties from the right region and seeing if it's their best type of soil or best type of production by the winemaker, and just having that unique story from the winemaker alone really helps us create that wine selection for the restaurant and help make everything integrated, especially with food.
All right. Now, as a wine expert, though, would you would you consider yourself like a wine snob? Would you look down on people who's drinking maybe like a cabernet while they're eating pork barbecue sa na inihaw lang?
No, I try not to be a snob, no, pero I think I'm one of the easiest person to really impressed when it comes to food and wine pairing or to drinking wine. I definitely don't look down on people who would do ihaw and wine because I think that wine is really all about elevating your dining experience. Diba? I mean, when you're having pork barbecue with liempo and isaw, and then you're having a nice glass of, let's say, Cabernet Sauvignon or Merlot, I think it just makes everything better. But at the end of the day, it's really who you're drinking it with. Diba? When you're having it with friends or
Oh,
family, I think that's really the best part.
but can't you drink it alone? Also,
Yeah, of course. I think that's one of the best things also that you could do, drink it
there we
alone.
go. That's what
Yeah.
I wanted to hear. But yeah, for all the monsters who are tuned in, this is Heard on Thursdays. I'm talking to sommelier Ian Santos. We're talking about how to pair food, Filipino food rather, with wines, or just learn about wines really, so you can be better when you shop for the next bottle. Now, let's pretend, Ian, I'm in a supermarket. I'm about to buy one bottle of red, one bottle of white for dinner. Now, I know it's Filipino food, but I don't know what they're gonna serve me. So, what would be the safe bets for my red or my white?
Okay. Yeah, so Filipino food is really quite easy to pair wine with. But if you're not exactly sure what type of food you're actually pairing it with, I definitely go for something that's on the lighter side. So for white wines, I mean, your best examples, Riesling. Chenin Blanc is one of my favorite grape varieties as well for white wines. Viognier, or like let's say Vinho Verde from Portugal, is one of the best things that you can actually try with Filipino food. I love Vinho Verde is one of the easiest drinking white wines that you can try also. Red wines, I mean, I've mentioned this a couple of times already.
Yeah,
Pinot Noir is one of
right.
the safest bet. Grenache from Australia or from Spain is something that you can explore. And then there's also Gamay, like for the lighter type of from Beaujolais, which is a really
Mm.
nice, easy drinking red wine, usually very fruity, very easy to drink, very low in tannins. Really good to pair with Filipino food.
All right, there we go. We got a couple, not just one of each, not just one of each red or white. He gave us a list, monsters. So just rewind when you watch this later on our socials so that you can take notes. But now, I want to ask, buying wine in a wine store or supermarket, it can be intimidating, especially for those who aren't familiar with the different varietals
Yeah.
and they don't know what's for them. So, can you share some helpful wine buying tips?
Yeah. So never go for the most expensive wine only because it's expensive.
Hmm.
You actually have a lot of options for the lower price point wines. No? Always go for the grape variety. Just make sure it's the right type of grape variety from the right region. So long as it's going to be a light, easy drinking wine or something that you like also or
Yeah.
familiar with, I think that's the safest bet when you're in the wine store.
All right. Good to know. Good to know. For monsters who are wine novices, take notes. Now let's get specific, Ian. Now I want to know how you would pair there's a list of food here and we're gonna try and pair it, and it's okay if you're gonna repeat the answers. You already pretty much gave us like a list of reds and whites anyways to pair with these Filipino food.
Yeah.
So let's just recap for these meals specifically. What would you pair,
Yeah.
say, with adobo? It's not specified if it's chicken or pork. Let's just say it's chicken and pork adobo.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best Filipino foods to pair wine with. No? I think adobo is one of the best examples for Filipino food also, only because it has all of that fat, acid, and salt in it.
Right.
Acid is one of the things that you should consider when pairing wine with food. It's also one of the dishes that can pair well with almost any type of wine. You can pair it with white wine, you can pair it with rosé, you can pair it with a sparkling wine or even a red wine. But if you want to go specific, no, my favorite pairing for adobo would be rosé.
Rosé.
Specifically a rosé from Provence in France. Easy drinking, usually served chilled. So if your food or if your adobo is a bit spicy, I think that rosé will pair really well
Ooh,
with it.
nice. All right. What about pork or fish sinigang? So maybe two different kinds of wines. Well, depending on what you suggest, anyway. Pork or fish sinigang?
Okay, yeah, sinigang is in general it's very tart. It
Mm,
has a bit of acidity to it. So for white wine, if it's fish, I'd go with the Riesling with it.
mm,
A Riesling is known for its high acid content. So if it's high acid wine and then you have a dish that's also high acidity, it just mellows everything down and it
mm.
actually accentuates the flavor component of the food. So sinigang, especially if it's with fish, really good with Riesling. If you're having pork, for your sinigang, again, Pinot Noir is my favorite wine. But if you go for a Pinot Noir from Washington State for this pairing, I think that will be a good, experience in terms of flavor components in your palate.
All
That's
right.
the good
Ian's
one.
favorite. Ian's favorite.
Yes.
Now let's have lechon. What's a good
Oh,
wine pair?
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll definitely pair this with a Syrah. A lot of people would actually say Lechon goes well with Rosé, it goes well with Pinot Noir, but Syrah, I think, is a really good red wine to pair with Lechon. Lechon is a very flavorful but very delicate type of dish, very high
Mm,
in fat content. Syrah
true.
has a bit of texture to it. It's not spicy, but it has some pepper notes to it also. So it kind of blends well with a lechon. It has a bit of acidity to it. So when you take a bite of lechon, you coat your tongue with fat, and then you pair it with syrah that has a bit of acidity to it. It's like cleansing your palate again. It's just a
Mm,
really good blend with each other.
right. This is a terrible idea to talk about at 11 at night, but let's keep going. Okay, so I mentioned Tapsilog earlier, so let's go with that. What about Tapsilog? What
Yeah,
is
okay,
the
yeah. Tapa is very peppery.
mm,
And I think it will go really well with Grenache, especially if it's from southern Rhone Valley in France. Grenache naman is known for its peppery notes. So it's something that just complements the food also. So it's red wine, it's red meat, it's pepper, both are peppery. So I think that will just blend well together.
gusto ko yung Tapsilog, tapos parang you're having wine in the for breakfast.
Why
Sound
not?
perfect. Wine not. Indeed. All right, next. What about caldereta or mechado?
Oh, okay. Tomato based. So, like when you think of tomatoes, I usually think of Italian wines. No, I think a Chianti, like with Sangiovese, no, for
Mm,
the Greek. I think a Chianti would be really good with Machado or Caldereta. Caldereta can be a bit cheesy also, diba? Like it
yeah,
depends on your recipe, but I think a Chianti from Italy would be really good.
that sounds delightful. Oh my gosh. My stomach is grumbling. Anyway, let's keep going. Kare kare.
Ayan, okay, good. Kare-kare. So, it's red meat, no, for the
Mhm.
main protein, but I think it will still go well with white wine. Nutty notes, since it's made out of nuts. Um, Verdicchio from Marche in Italy, I think will be really good. Verdicchio naman is known for its nutty flavor components, like some of
Mm,
that almond skin flavor components.
mm.
That will definitely pair well with kare-kare.
All
Something
right.
easy, something easy.
Got you. All right. Now let's go. Konti na lang, promise. What about sisig?
Okay, everybody's favorite. So
Yes.
if you love it with beer, I think you love it with champagne. Diba? I mean, it's just like drinking
Ooh,
beer, but elevated. So champagne and
yeah.
sisig, I think, is a really good combination. It's very fatty. Sometimes it's citrusy because of calamansi. You have some. If you put eggs in there, it's even better. So if you have champagne with it, it's just like cleansing your palate. It's a party in your mouth. Kumbaga.
I like that you said specifically champagne. Hindi lang it parang if you can't afford though champagne, okay ka lang with
Yeah,
sparkling wine.
absolutely. Like you can go for a cava with it or prosecco from Italy. I think
Mhm.
those ones will be really good with sisig.
That's actually not a bad idea. That's like inuman, but like
Yeah,
bougie inuman.
true.
All right, and then we mentioned this earlier, a pork barbecue. So what's a good pair?
Okay, pork barbecue. It's grilled, peppery also, very savory. Shiraz, I think, would be really good with that. Shiraz from Australia. Peppery wine, full bodied, good texture with it, a bit smoky. Everything just blends well together. Shiraz and pork barbecue. I think it's something that you personally should try also, Nikki. I've done it before.
Okay.
Really good pairing. It's a
All
good
right.
pairing, really.
Okay, I will try it. Shiraz and pork barbecue. Noted. Next, let's try something different naman. Maybe without rice, but you can also eat this with rice if you're really hungry. Pansit.
Ah, okay, pancit. Very fresh, no? Like it's nothing. You don't want to overpower the food. Also, that's one thing that you should take note of when you're pairing wine with food. You want the food to be the star of the pairing. So you kind of
Ah.
have the wine as a condiment to it. Vinho Verde is one of the wines that I mentioned earlier. Made in Portugal, really easy, more on that green, fresh fruit aromas also, some hints of parang vegetal notes to it.
Mm-mm.
Really good with pancit, I'm sure. Easy drinking white wine.
All
Vino
right.
Verde.
Vino verde for pancit. Next, kilawin.
Ah,
Kilawin.
really good. Okay, so kilawin is one of my favorite dishes ever.
I like that
Sorry, I
you
get
got
too
so
excited.
excited, Big.
Yes, I get too excited when it comes to food and wine pairing. But
Go.
kilawin, I love it with Riesling, especially if it's from Alsace, the dry type of Riesling. I know a lot of people who prefer their Riesling on the sweeter side, but Rieslings from Alsace tend to be on the drier side. Some are off dry, maybe hints of sweetness to it, but it's usually very high in acidity. So if your food again is really high in acidity, you have to have a wine that's also high in acidity, just not to overpower the wine naman. So you want Riesling or like Sauvignon Blanc from Sancerre, like would be a good pairing with Kilauea. It will actually make your wine seem like a sweeter wine, or it will actually bring out the fruit component of the wine also. Really good pairing.
Ooh. All
Kilauea and
right.
Riesling or Sauvignon Blanc.
All right. Riesling or Sauvignon Blanc for kilawin. And then we have pork binagoongan.
Quite challenging, no? But pork binagoongan kasi is very fatty, very greasy. It's red meat. Yeah, it's very savory, very high in umami also.
Mm.
So I'll definitely go with a rosé on this one. Something safe, or kumbaga something in the middle lang. You don't want red wine with it kasi it might overpower the food. White wine naman uh, might be overpowered by the food. So rosé would be in the middle. So rosé from Provence again would be a good pairing with it.
All right. And finally, what about Filipino spaghetti? The sweet one.
So it's quite challenging because when you have sweet dishes, it normally makes your wine seem high in alcohol and seem like it's very bitter. So you want something that also has some sweetness to it. But if you prefer red wines, you can go for a nice, let's say, Valpolicella, like an
Wow.
Italian red wine. Valpolicella is usually uh, sorry, not aged, but dried before actual fermentation or before pressing the grapes. The grapes are actually dried. So when
Mm-mm.
turned into wine, it gives you a lot of that ripe fruit flavor component. It's going to smell like it's a sweet wine, but when you drink it, it's dry. So it will
Oh.
actually pair well with spaghetti because you have that flavor component going on also. Really nice pairing.
All right. Well, that is the end of the list. I wish I could give you more because I already like you were just about to get super excited. But we gotta keep going with the questions. But thank you for all of those recommendations. Monsters, you know where to catch this video. It is live on Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitch. So if you want to get some notes once again, just go and watch the video once the show is over. But please stay with us. Okay, so I'm with Ian Santos, our sommelier for the night. Now I want to know also, let's say you want to pop a bottle and you're like on a date and it's like a wine cab, sort of. So this is a different kind of pairing. What would be a safe go-to red or white wine to, I guess, impress the date?
Okay, so for white wines, I definitely go with classic regions. So long as you have one that's like familiar to most people, like let's say Burgundy or like Napa Valley would be a good region to explore. Like a Chardonnay from Sonoma County also would be a really good choice for this, or even Burgundy. Classic grape variety, I think that will be a
Mhm.
safe bet. Red wine, I think a Bordeaux will always impress, no matter which part of Bordeaux it's from. But like a bottle of Bordeaux will usually impress almost anybody, especially when you're on a date. I think Bordeaux wines are just very romantic, like easy. You're usually having steak and on date nights,
Mhm.
so I think Bordeaux will be a good wine.
All right. Well, I also want to know, coming from a sommelier, let's say, and I'm asking for a friend. Um, so let's say that you want to present the wine, right? I think that's like the kind of like the elegance of it as well as a sommelier. You present the wine. There's like the vintage, the label, and appellation, etc. How should one present the wine? How would you suggest that they present the wine to like their date?
Oh, okay. So sometimes when you talk too much about the wine, that could be a turn off also. No? You don't want to
Yeah,
talk too
okay,
much
that's
about
fair.
the wine, but like the best thing you could do is just let the wine speak on its own. Like, show a nice bottle. But if you want to talk about it, just focus on the four things: grape variety, appellation, the vintage, and then of course the producer. If you're familiar with it, just focus on those four details on the wine label. I think that will impress your date.
Yeah, Ian Santos elevating your date night, everybody. Now you know. Now you know what to do. Now I have some questions with regard to like just I guess maybe a little bit of wine etiquette because some of us we like to drink our drinks cold because it's a hot country. We're in a tropical country and our dishes are mostly savory, very saucy. So I want to know, as a sommelier, have you ever put ice in your wine? And what do you say to those who do? Is it a mortal sin? What is the recommendation to, I guess, have cold wine?
Okay, well, I've personally tried putting ice in my wine, but that was a type of wine where you can actually which is actually best to drink with ice. So it's a sparkling sweet wine that's really meant to be served over ice. So like, that would be my limit when it comes to adding. I won't add ice cubes on a good glass of Cabernet or Chardonnay or Merlot. You want the wine to speak on its own, like really just express itself and its purity. um, again, I'm not a snob. I don't really judge if that's the way people like drinking their wine. Go ahead, add some ice cubes in it. But the only thing that you're gonna get from wine with ice in it, you're gonna dilute everything down. I don't really recommend you
True.
doing this for expensive wines, no, like
Yeah,
classic regions or classic grape varieties. It won't be in its best condition, so it's like sayang for your wine.
true.
Yeah.
All right. Now, well, there's one thing I've also learned from our wine app class. I think we had, well, anyway, but disregarding like who was the one who taught us, but I remember learning that the room temp. They said like you should serve reds at room temp, but then the room temp that's like in the bottle, depending if it's in France or something, the room temp is completely different from our room temp here. So
Exactly.
is it so what is the proper way of serving red wine in a tropical country?
Okay. So like white wines, rosés, and sparkling wines are just best served chilled. So like temperature wise, it's always best to serve it between 6 degrees to 12 degrees Celsius. When you go to Europe, no, like when you're in France or when you're in Italy or even when you're in the US, like when they talk room temperature, they mean 18 degrees to 22, 24 degrees Celsius. That's their room temperature. Our room temperature is
Much
28 to
warmer.
35 degrees
Yeah.
Celsius. It's definitely way too warm for wine. And when your wine is a bit on the warmer side, no, it's only gonna show you alcohol. It's gonna be a bit difficult to drink. All you're going to notice in the palate and on the nose actually is alcohol. So
Mm-mm.
yeah, for red wines, best to serve it between 14 to 18 degrees Celsius.
And so it's totally okay to put it in the fridge.
Yeah, you can put it in the fridge for a bit, but don't fully chill a red wine. They won't show their characteristics naman if they're too
Got you.
cold.
All right. Okay. Duly noted. Now, for all the monsters tuning in, this is heard on Thursdays. We're talking about wine with Ian Santos. Now, most Filipino wine drinkers, they seem to favor red wine over white. Why do you think that is? Is it possible that they are drinking it for the much touted health benefits of red wine, or is there another reason in terms of flavor profile?
Yeah, I think the Philippines is still a red wine drinking country, and I think it's really more of that familiarity with wine selection. Like when we talk wine in general, we think of red wines.
Hmm.
But there are so many different kinds, and I think Filipinos are already becoming educated when it comes to wine consumption
Yeah.
as well. I mean, compared to the past 5 years, Filipinos are big wine drinkers now. In terms of health benefits, there's definitely so many benefits that you can get from drinking red wine. Red wines are fermented with a skin. And when you ferment the skin with a grape juice, you're actually extracting a few things like tannins, resveratrol, polyphenols. I mean, like things that are really going to help you detox, or it's really more of an antioxidant. So
Yeah.
that's why they say that red wine is good for the heart. And it's somehow true because red
Mm-mm.
wines are fermented with skin and you extract other things like that. So yes, generally speaking, red wine. And I've done a couple of wine talks to a few doctors, like a group of doctors.
Wow.
Nobody said it's never true. So I guess it's true, and it's a good excuse to be drinking more red wine, I guess.
I think anyone would be like reluctant to say otherwise, but I don't want to ruin it for everyone.
True.
No, but I think it's also very interesting for sure that there are some health benefits. But I also want to know, like, for drinking red wine, though, yes, it's good for the heart. But is there like a serving suggestion per day or per week so that it doesn't become a problem?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a bottle of wine usually consists of 750 ml. I
Mhm.
think like the best maximum for consumption, like on a healthy standard, would be about 300 ml max. Like that's two glasses of wine. I think like a maximum would
Per
that
day,
would be per day. I guess. I mean, sure.
every other day.
I mean, you can say that, but yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's really all about um, hydrating yourself. Also, drinking water with every glass of wine. I think that's the good balance.
Mm-mm. Fair point. Fair point. Water is still key for you to enjoy all of your wine. Now, there are also a lot of Filipino dishes that best pair with white wine, and you mentioned some of them as well. And what can you say though? What can you say that to frequent or habitual red wine drinkers, like, what can you say to convince them to try white wine?
Yeah, great question. So I do have a lot of friends who actually are big red wine drinkers, and I've turned
Mm.
them into white wine drinkers. But the
Wow.
best way I do it is to slowly introduce them to rosé before I introduce them to white wines. Like just show them, hey, wines doesn't have to be heavy, it doesn't have to be tannic. So you can start with rosé, which is very complex, very flavorful, but also light, and then eventually show them different kinds of white wines. That it's not just Moscato or Riesling. There's so many different kinds that you can actually try, and there are definitely heavy white wines that you can drink. Like Chardonnays from Napa Valley are very oaky, very rich, very bold. So you slowly help them transition through rosé and then white wine and then maybe eventually sparkling wine.
Ooh, all right. All right. I will try. The thing is, I think it depends on the person as well. Whenever I drink white wine, for example, the next day my head hurts. And it only happens when I drink white wine. So I think maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just drinking the wrong white wine, but I guess it just does happen, and maybe people don't like because it is sweeter, right? White wine does have a bit of a sweeter,
Yeah,
or
generally,
it has that reputation. Yeah, it does have that reputation. So maybe that's why
yeah,
people don't
yeah. But
like
I
it.
think again, it's really all about hydrating. Also, like usually people who get hangover or headache after drinking like 3 glasses of wine are a bit dehydrated, and that's what causes headache.
Mm,
Some people say also that white wines are heavier on sulfites, which is like one of the things that causes headache, but there's never really been a proven research about it. But that's what people say also. So I think it's one of those things that where you can balance out drinking wine and then drinking water also. So
mm.
yeah, you can try. Let me know.
All right, Ian Santos reminding me to hydrate whenever I drink white wine. Thank you. Now, there is also there is also a question here I want to ask you. Is there one wine that you've tried and lived to its hype? And is there another wine that you tried that was hyped up so much, but when you tried it, it's just like, it's great. It's not great, but it's okay.
Yeah. Like so I try different wines as much as possible na. I don't really try the same type of wine within a span of like 2 months. I try
Mm,
I try to I try different wines every now and then, but I haven't really had any wine where it hasn't lived up to its hype unless it's like a super expensive wine and badly stored.
mm,
That's usually something where I'd be disappointed, of course. I mean, it's not stored right, it's 20 years old, but not properly stored. Then that would definitely be something that's gonna go beyond its label, its story, its actual great variety. So sayang na. But
mm-mm,
yeah, there's so many different kinds of wines that really impressed me, like unusual regions, especially from Europe, no? Like Italy. Like I've never really explored this country in terms of wine selection, but one of the regions that really impressed me is Sicily. Like not a lot of people know that
Ooh,
Sicily makes really good wine. Like Sicilian wines are one of my ultimate favorite red
wow.
wines also. So yeah, that's something good to explore.
Sicilian wine, got you.
Yeah.
Now, is there a particular wine that you've tried that's like just tastes so unique? Probably good to just try once, just to experience it.
Yeah, I mean, Burgundy Pinot Noirs can be quite expensive. Like that, usually you'd get it at you can buy one at least 1,800 pesos. It can be quite on the expensive side already. But if you get to try a good red wine from Burgundy, and especially if it's made out of from a small vineyard or maybe a small village, you'd definitely be you'll definitely be surprised at how good these kind of wines actually can be. So Burgundy, I think, is one of the regions that can really impress you in terms of exploring.
All right, exploring Burgundy wines. Now, we're down to the last few questions. I understand it's already midnight. Perfect time to try those pairings, I think.
Yeah.
Now, do you think, now, as we all know, we are in a tropical country, there have been attempts to make wine from the Philippines, but we haven't really been able to prosper in that side. But do you think maybe it's possible to mimic the terroir in an enclosed space, let's say, to be able to grow wine grapes here in the Philippines? Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, I think that's possible, but not in a way that we're growing grapes that are similar to European countries. I mean, I don't think we can grow really good Cabernet Sauvignons and
Mm.
Riesling. Maybe if we get to explore more grape varieties that are really suited for our soil, our weather, our climate. I mean, it's something that can withstand typhoon season.
True.
I
That's a
think
good point.
I think we can grow grapes eventually, but I don't think it's going to be at that same quality as the ones that you get from other countries.
All
Yeah.
right. I think probably a good start, though. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be cool to kind of just like come up with a grape varietal that's like specific to the Philippines, I think that would be cool. We just need
Yeah.
scientists.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
I
And then,
heard Thailand's doing really well in terms of wine
oh
making. There
wow.
are a few like, areas in Thailand that's producing wine.
Have you tried it already or not yet?
Not yet, but I've been hearing so much about it.
Ah, all right. Well, I guess something to put on our radar as well. If we hear Thai wine, probably worth a shot, probably worth trying. Now, what is the best part now? I want to know, as a sommelier, what is the best part about being or being in that profession apart from trying all the wines? What would be the other best part about being a sommelier?
Okay, aside from the wines and the food that you get to try
Oh
with these
yeah.
different kinds of wines, I think it's really all about meeting different people, who are into wine, who are into good food also.
Mhm.
I think wine always connects everybody. I've met a few friends who are from different countries also. So it's really all about getting connected to so many people who are interested in this uh, art also, winemaking or wine consumption. So yeah,
All
meeting new
right.
people.
Meeting new people. Awesome. Now, what are your tips for those who are interested in becoming a sommelier? What are the things that they should know and things they should start to practice?
Okay, so definitely start tasting different kinds of wine. Never go for the same brand or same producer. Maybe you can try different grape varieties. Try the same grape varieties but from different regions. Always go and explore it with food also. Try different fruits. Try different coffee. Try different, anything where you'll expose your sense of smell and taste. Just go
Mm,
ahead and explore these kind of food and beverages. Yeah.
mm. And can you share any tips for those, for our monsters who are listening, how they can better appreciate their wine with their Filipino food?
Oh yeah. Again, it's really all about pairing and exploring. So even if the people tell you, "Hey, don't pair white wine with red meat," go ahead and try it because I think it's really all about your personal experience, what you think of it, what you think of the pairing, what you think of the taste profile. Wine is a very personal thing, also. No? It's really
Right.
all about what you smell and taste. But yeah, if you want to explore more and at least learn about wine, there are a few institutions that can help you out when it comes to food and wine pairing. Like if you can take WSET courses, there's which is actually being offered here in the country. So like I think Wine Story offers WSET courses, and the Run offers this course also. So they'll definitely help you more when it comes to wine knowledge.
All right. So they are available locally. So for those who are interested, worth a shot in looking into those programs. Now, we are at the end of the show. Oh my gosh, there's so much to talk about. Can I just say, Ian, as someone who knew you from college, I am so proud of you, man. That is like, it's insane to see how far you've come and how awesome you are as a sommelier. This is so awesome. We got to have wine at some point
Absolutely. Yeah, I didn't get to mention this, but being a DJ was actually at some point one of my dream jobs. So I think you're
Wow.
doing really well.
Oh, thank you. And
Yeah,
you're on radio right now, so you're kind of doing
there you
the
go.
same.
Both, why not?
I love it. I love it. Now, before we go, anything you want to plug, anything that you want to promote for the monsters so and they can follow you and ask you for questions with regard to their wines, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can follow me on Instagram, message me. I'll definitely help you out with any pairings. It's ODEELYO. It's called Odilio. That's my Instagram account. You can also check us out in One World Deli in Jupiter Street. It's one of the stores that we opened up for a few meats, like some seafood also, where you can grab a bottle of wine and have some of the fresh stuff that we have. We also opened quite a few restaurants, One World Kitchen, Cafe Flore. We're opening a few more, like pardon my French. And then you can also check out one of my small business's website. It's called Uvas Wine Club. It's a
Ooh,
monthly subscription company where we make a selection of four different kind of wines every month, all based on a theme. Something fun, like music and wine pairing, like movie and wine pairing, things like that. So you can check us out at uvaswineclub.com, and you can follow us on Instagram also and Facebook.
I'm only learning about this now. I'm just kidding. Well, I am so glad to have you tonight. It was so much fun talking to you about wine and just seeing how far you've come as well, and just like enjoying and like teaching the monsters how to pair their Filipino food with the different wines from all over the world. That is what you call like international world fusion, world cuisine. Copyright. But anyway,
Awesome.
that's it for Heard on Thursdays. This has been Nikki. My guest tonight was sommelier champion Ian Santos. It's been a
Thank
pleasure,
you.
but for now, it is time for us to get on out of here. But remember to always keep a lock right here on the Monster. Bye, guys.
Monster exclusive interview. Monster exclusive interview. Only from Manila's hottest. Monster RX93.1.